Imagine a small Texas town where everybody knows each other and crime is almost unheard of. Now imagine that same town gripped with fear as a ruthless predator stalks and kills without remorse. That predator was Daniel Lee Corwin, and his reign of terror left a community shattered. Today, we're going to uncover the unsettling truth behind his crimes, his victims, and his path to justice. Ooh, what do you think of that? You ever heard of this?
No.
So, since we've been listening to more books and reading more books, I went down the other day and was like, I need something to listen to. And there was a book that I listened to, and you would have thought that I had it ready. I'm trying to find it, and it was all about this case. And it was pretty gross and pretty interesting. But how rude of me. Voice you're hearing, it's me. It's Matt. Sometimes I go by Beard Laws. And joining me as always is the Dun Dun Queen, Meg.
Hello.
Happy Mother's Day, oh Meggy Poo.
Thanks.
How's the Mother's Day going for you so far?
We're not too far into it, so
Yeah, we're pretty good into it. But either way, happy belated Mother's Day to all the moms out there, especially the ones closest to us. If it wasn't for most of you, we wouldn't be here, right?
correct.
I was gonna say you're shaking your head, but the people can't hear you shake your head.
Words.
Yeah.
We're also celebrating a birthday, so things are a little crazy.
And sprinkle in some softball practice. Yeah. Anyways, nobody else cares. Yeah, life is pretty busy. And life really changed with old Daniel Lee Corwin. And it's just, I mean, how many of these stories do we find where it's just like, oh, it's a small town. Everybody knows each other. There's never any crime until there was.
Mm-hmm.
Crazy, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
You got nothing, just mm-hmm, 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 mm-hmm,
Da, da.
mm-hmm. All right, well, Meg's got nothing to say, so Corwin's name may not be as widely known as some of the more infamous serial killers, but his heinous acts are no less terrifying. Brace yourself, everybody, because we are going to uncover the chilling details of his life, his victims, and his path to execution. Yeah, spoiler alert. He gets the death sentence. Because this is one of the cases that are going to truly remind us of the darkness that are lurking within seemingly ordinary visuals. Before we could jump into all of these, stories and everything, just a quick warning, this episode does contain graphic descriptions of violence and murder that may not be suitable for all listeners. Please proceed with caution. Mixed it up a little bit.
Well done.
Thank you. That's professional, right?
It was.
Yeah. Yore Town podcast, the more professional true crime podcast. Slightly. Obviously here on the Yore Town, if you happen to be new here, welcome. Hey, we dive into true crime stories that sometimes they might send shivers down your spine. And other times they're just stories that we hear. Like I said, well, Meg was nodding and I was trying to get her to talk to kill some time. I was able to find the book, and it's called The Demon Next Door by Brian Burrow and Steve White. And it's an actual Audible original.
Huh.
You can get it for $6 if you want to buy it. Apparently it's on Goodreads and it's everywhere. Unfortunately, there is a Dr. Daniel Corwin from the Children's Hospital of Philadelphia.
Huh.
That's an unfortunate name, I would have to imagine. If that is, that would suck, sharing the same name with a serial killer. Mm-hmm. Interesting. Be like, Google me, just check. You're a serial killer, doc? Wonder how many times he gets that.
Right?
I feel like I wouldn't let him be my doctor just because there was a guy that killed people. Would you? If you went to go to the doctor and they were a serial killer's name?
I mean, if this person had the death penalty, I feel like we're good.
Okay. Do you, though?
Yeah.
All right. Let's give you a little bit about Daniel Lee Corwin, not the doctor, the one who's not with us anymore. He was born on January 5th, 1958 in Old Tejas. As a child, Corwin's life appeared relatively normal. There was no significant, indicators of the monstrous path that he would later take. Those who knew him described him as a quiet and somewhat withdrawn kid. However, as he entered his teenage years, Corwin's behavior became increasingly erratic. Petty thefts, minor altercations marked his early criminal record. And in the book, they did mention that he would occasionally get caught doing acts of things to animals.
Mhm.
So, I mean, when they say relatively normal childhood, I think they're meaning the parents and stuff like the life that they lived was pretty normal, but he wasn't. Parents very high up in the church, very well known in the community, very respected. And then, him.
Mhm.
So by the time that old Daniel Corwin was in his 20s, he developed a pretty disturbing pattern of violence against women. He was known to stalk them in the area, and several reported feeling pretty uneasy when he was around. And despite warnings and suspicions, his violent potential remained unchecked. In 1975, Corwin was convicted of burglary and assault and served a brief little stint in jail. What shocked the community most was how Corwin managed to convince the parole board that he had changed. Because I think we're a little out of potential order here, but he really ramped up. Just went down a path, like you said. He was just kind of one of those quiet loner kids, but like very, very intelligent, and was able to manipulate, was able to, go unscathed in the community. Like it was that person that you were like, no, there's no way that these parents, the Corwins, would do anything wrong. Even when he got in trouble, it was still like, what? Really? But he ends up doing that. He gets out, and yeah, jail. If only. How many times in how many of these stories have we done where people go to jail and then they're out?
A lot.
And then things continually happen.
Mm-hmm.
Well, it's going to get worse because he, portrayed himself as a, just model citizen, model, you know, inmate when he was in there briefly and everything like that. He attended religious services, worked within the prison system. Everybody was just like, he's going to be all right. But everything was not all right. He obviously at an early age learned to manipulate people. He just kind of used his seemingly calm demeanor to mask his growing darkness.
Huh.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Corwin's descent into full-blown violence culminated in the mid-'80s. In 1987, he, how would you say that without saying the nasty word? He assaulted and murdered Diane Johnson, who was a mother of 2. But before the actual murder, there was a lot of just assaults against women. There was one going back to the book where I believe there was a sitter, 14-year-old. I forget what he was for age at the time. And he broke in. The sitter heard the baby crying, went to check on it. He had a knife, pretty much held it to her throat, said, "You're going to do this or I'm going to kill you." Assaulted her, and she hid in the bathroom like, oh my God, but was worried about the baby and stuff like that. And then he knocked on the door. She's thinking, oh, he's coming back to kill me. And I guess he looked at her and said, "You accidentally grabbed my shirt." Took his shirt, left as if nothing happened. The cops come over and they're questioning her and they're asking this, they're asking that. And she thought it was somebody that didn't go to school with her. She thought it was somebody that was, maybe came in, to visit family, stuff like that, knowing though that it was still like a high school kid. I think he was 17 at the time, and kind of went unscathed. And then even when she saw him at school, went back to the authorities to tell him, it was just kind of like, they didn't believe her.
Huh.
So then he does it to another girl a little while later. And and they just kind of blamed it on the girl and said that she was like risky. She probably wanted it. There's no way the Corwins would be involved. And, it just started to seem there was a little bit of collusion,
Mm-hmm.
you know? And, yeah. So he ends up um, going up to a girl in a car and more or less saying, hey, drive. And he's got the knife and he's going to, I'm going to do something about this. He brings her to like a gravel pit, secluded, makes her do things. He does the assault. But this time, because he did the 2 assaults, no violence or whatever, this time he decides he's going to get rid of her. But he fails. And there's a lot of gruesome details here. So if you don't want to hear it, but more or less he takes the knife, cuts her throat. There's a lot of blood, tries to stab her in the chest to kill her, and thinks he does. He gets in the vehicle, thinks she's dead, she's going to bleed out, gets in the vehicle, her vehicle, brown like sedan or something like that, flies off, looks like he's going to try to run her over to finish her off. She's pretending she's dead, misses by like 4 feet, gone. She gets up, runs to the highway, and more or less is found by some people, gets to the hospital, all that stuff.
Wow.
And the only reason she didn't die is from the clasp on her bra. He couldn't get in all the way, I guess, because of it.
Huh.
So that's early on, and she's able to identify him and all of that stuff. So he goes to jail, but he's a kid, right?
Mm-hmm.
So they're trying to figure out, do they try him as an adult, as a kid, mental facility, whatever? The judge pretty much has no mercy on him. So they end up settling that he was going to get 40 years in federal prison in Texas, even though he was a kid.
Mm-hmm.
That's when he goes into the prison systems. I think, like I said, he manipulates people. Everybody in the jail, great dude, awesome. He did everything he needed to do. I believe they let him out after 10 years on good behavior because he's reformed. He's good to go. Good to go after, I think it was like 10 years out of a 40-year sentence.
Huh.
But he's good to go. And, well, he clearly wasn't. And even like they started doing interviews and stuff like that in the book and some other stuff that I read, and they were all just like, yeah, he fooled us all. Like, he absolutely fooled us. So he's out of jail, and now, he gets a job with a contractor, and this contractor is like, yeah, he's good. There was the one thing: stay out of trouble, don't steal. Okay, yeah, I can do that. So he's working away, good community member. He's starting to date somebody, falls in love. They have some issues, and the bed. There wasn't the violent thing, and that's what really gets him going. You know what I mean? And so that kind of falters out, and then he goes back to assaulting and murdering more people. There was a 32-year-old mother of 2, stalked her for days before attacking her in her own home. He violently assaulted, strangled her, and her body was discovered by her children. A trauma that would scar the family for life.
Mm-hmm.
And then just a few months later, he strikes again. His second victim, Linda Parsons, abducted from a grocery store parking lot, forced her into the car, drove to a secluded area, and assaulted and murdered her. And the brutality of these crimes, I mean, they shocked investigators. But again, nothing could be linked to him. And he even went to the boss, all the cops and stuff, and they're like, hey, what's he been up? Like, they're starting to question him, and they're like, why are you instantly going to an ex-con? Like, he hasn't done anything. Nothing at all. And things have just escalated a lot, like violent murders. And he wasn't changed. He wasn't reformed.
Mm-hmm.
And like these methods, they just seem to be colder, more premeditated. He would meticulously plan his attacks, stalk his victims for days, and he would bring them to secluded locations to avoid detection. This calculated shift made him significantly more dangerous and unpredictable. And then a disturbing twist. Local authorities, they downplayed the connection between the murders, fearing the news would damage the town's reputation. That's another one. Collusion, maybe,
Mm-hmm.
for the cops and the church. And it's always a thing, like churches and stuff, they have this power, especially in some southern states, right?
Yeah.
And there was some reports and some things that were allegedly said that church officials would pressure the police to avoid public linking the cases. They didn't want a serial killer. They just said, there's a couple of murders. But like we mentioned, it's a small town. There wasn't murders. Everybody knew everybody.
Mm-hmm.
To just have one, two murders again, now that Daniel's out, seems like it should be pretty easy to solve, right?
You would think.
Maybe as outsiders, obviously we're not in the police force. We've never done police work. It just seems that there is a huge pattern in there. And I'm sure they, the law officials in the 80s, they didn't have the technology now. I'm sure they were diligently working the case, But Corwin remained at large longer than he might have if the murders had been properly investigated as serial killings from the start. But his downfall came when he attempted to abduct another woman in 1988. His intended victim managed to escape and report the attack, leading to the arrests. But when I say avoid and escape and give information, this woman pretty much had her throat cut out. She was bleeding profusely, very, very, very badly. They aren't sure how she survived, but she was in the hospital. She couldn't talk, and she worked with a sketch artist for hours and hours. And apparently this sketch artist was a sophomore in college that they brought over, and just she kind of formed a nice little bond. And in the book, they said the whole time, like the patient, the victim, was able to just like keep her wits. She had her humor the whole time. She was writing things down, pointing at, the eyes, try this, the nose, try the nose, try this, try this, try this. And they went back and forth, back and forth. And I remember at one point they were like, do you want to take a break or whatever? And the victim was like, I got nowhere else to go. Let's do this. So they worked back and forth. And then at the end of the day, that person that did the sketch artist is like a world-renowned sketch artist, teaches classes, but that was her very first case. And apparently she still has the original ones that she did. All the notes, the paper's yellowish. It's just old,
That's cool.
just wild. But I mean, they went through, and when they were done with it, the sketch was like almost as if it was a picture of Daniel. And they even brought it to the boss of him and was like, hey, this is what the sketch artist. And he was more or less like, wow, there has never been more picture, the detail of everything. They're like, if you would have probably drawn, his pants, it probably would have had the matching, little emblem or belt buckle or whatever. I guess it was just so well done. But they ended up through that. And then, obviously they could be new DNA technology, and they were able to link a couple of things with him in the case, and mostly the vehicle too. Stole the vehicle. And then his truck was around, and wild, right? So obviously they get him, they throw him in jail. Now the trial, because in 1989 it was a pretty quick trial. No wasting of the taxpayers' money. He gets sentenced to death, and the prosecution presented pretty overwhelming evidence. DNA samples matching those at the crime scenes. Corwin showing no remorse. Remained stoic throughout the proceedings. His defense team attempted to argue insanity, but they weren't falling for that again. During the trial, it became pretty apparent that Corwin had not only fooled the parole board, but the community itself. Many who had interacted with him after his release described him as polite and seemingly rehabilitated. The stark contrast between the public persona, his violent crimes, baffled even seasoned investigators. Then there were the murmurs, Meg, that turned the trial, the cover-ups, potential cover-ups, with some witnesses alleging that the influential community members had tried to minimize Corwin's actions to protect the town's image and the church. The media briefly explored these claims, but they were largely overshadowed by the gruesome details of Corwin's crimes. The jury convicted him of capital murder, and Corwin was sentenced to death. He spent nearly a decade on death row, during which time his appeals were denied. On December 7th, 1998, Corwin was executed by lethal injection at the Huntsville unit in Texas. Witnesses reported that Corwin remained motionless as the sentence was carried out. There was he did do like a little apology and sorry to the families, whether they believed it or not, and all the people watching. They were actually pissed because they said it was too quick, too painless, that he deserved worse.
Mm-hmm.
He just laid there, closed his eyes, and within so many minutes, the coroner comes in, or doctor, or whatever they do, said he's gone, and they said it wasn't. It should have been worse. I think in a state like Texas, they'd try to push for a stoning, or what's the one where they line up and it's and they shoot.
Mm-hmm. I don't know what's called.
You know what I'm talking about, though? I don't think you're allowed to do that in the States anymore, maybe. But of all the states, you would think maybe Texas, right?
Mm-hmm.
But the case of Daniel Lee Corwin serves as a grim reminder of the brutality that can hide behind an ordinary facade. That's a fun word to say, right? Facade. Surprised I said it right. Wasn't a name, so I got it.
Nailed it.
Nailed it. It also highlights how fear and desire to maintain appearances can sometimes hinder justice. Though his execution marked the end of his story, the pain he caused endures in the memories of those who survived him. It's unreal, huh? Tough one, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
But, I don't know. That's all we got, Meg. So, thank you, Meg, for spending your Mother's Day on a little date day in the studio. And thanks to everybody for listening to this whenever you get a chance to. And hopefully all the moms out there had a good little Mother's Day.
The sun is shining today.
We got sunshine.
Woo!
Got sunshine in my pocket. Isn't that a song?
Yeah.
I think so. Lady Gaga sang it. That or Matchbox 20, I don't know. But thank you for joining us on this harrowing journey into one of Texas' most chilling murder cases. If you like this, stay tuned. We got more. Do you want to tell them what we're going to talk about next week, Meg?
Bless you.
We're going to talk about, bless you. Wow, that came out of nowhere. Sorry, everybody. What happened?
You didn't tip your chair over.
Woo! Woo! All right, no spoilers.
There's lawnmowers running, so that's probably what.
Oh, yeah. It's funny. Our neighbor decided that he's going to get out on the mower today. It is currently 44 degrees, bundled up in pretty much a snowsuit, but we got to mow that grass. All right, well, let's get out of here. Let's go enjoy the rest of the day. And we can't thank you guys enough. Take a look around on the Beard Law Studio. There's a little something for everybody. And if you have any recommendations on any stories, maybe in a town near you, we would greatly appreciate it, wouldn't we, Meg?
Mm-hmm.
But if not, we'll come up with something. Maybe it'll be another book. You reading any true crime books?
Not at the moment.
No, I got one that I pulled up into the library. Let me see if I can get back to it real quick. The I-5 Killer. You ever heard of that one?
Nope.
I'm assuming it's about a killer on the I-5, but I think that's going to be next. It's by Ann Rule and Andy Stack. Oh, I pressed to play it. I thought it would give me a description. But either way, maybe we'll do something on the I-5 Killer. Maybe we won't, but we'll do something next week. All right, let's get out of here. For real this time.
Okay.
All right, my coffee's getting cold. Gotta go. Bye-bye.
Bye.